Welcome to your deep dive. Today, we're diving into the world of UFOs and UAPs.
Fascinating topic.
Yeah, we got a fascinating YouTube interview, actually, from one of our listeners featuring Luis Elizondo.
Oh, wow.
Do you remember him? He's the former head of the Pentagon's Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program,
Oh, yeah.
AATIP.
That's right.
And, our listener wants to know what Elizondo learned, during his time investigating these UFO sightings for the government,
Sure.
and if we should be worried about these unexplained phenomena.
Well, that's the big question, isn't it?
Yeah, and before we get into it, I think it's important to remember that the term UFO, Unidentified Flying Object,
Right.
has actually been replaced by UAP, which stands for Unidentified Aerial Phenomena.
That's an important distinction.
Yeah.
And I think it reflects a broader perspective on these objects, recognizing that they might not always be flying in the traditional sense.
Yeah, so it's not just about things in the sky anymore. It's anything unexplained in the air.
Right, and maybe even beyond.
And maybe even beyond, yeah.
Exactly.
So let's talk about Elizondo.
Okay.
This guy is fascinating.
Yeah, his background is quite impressive.
I mean, seasoned intelligence professional,
Absolutely.
experience in counterintelligence, terrorism.
Espionage, he's worked for various government agencies, you name it.
Yeah, I mean, this background lends a lot of credibility to his claims about UAPs, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
He's not just some, UFO enthusiast.
Right.
He's someone who knows how to analyze information, assess threats.
Absolutely. Is that a thing?
Exactly.
But what I find really interesting is how he got involved with AATIP in the first place.
Right. How does someone with that background end up in a program like that?
Yeah, well, he was initially recruited to the Pentagon after 9/11
Okay.
to help improve intelligence sharing between different agencies.
Makes sense.
And then later he was approached about this mysterious program investigating UAPs.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, and the way Elizondo describes his early days on the program is quite intriguing,
Right.
He was initially skeptical,
Okay.
like anybody would be,
Sure.
but the more he learned about these UAP encounters,
Yeah.
the more convinced he became that something truly extraordinary was happening.
So he had a change of heart.
He did. He really did.
Hmm.
He even uses the analogy of a criminal investigation, saying that the evidence for UAPs would be well beyond a reasonable doubt in a court of law.
Wow, that's a strong statement
Yeah.
coming from someone with his background.
Right. Exactly.
So he's approaching this from a very evidence-based perspective.
Totally.
Just like he would any other intelligence operation.
Exactly. So what is that evidence?
Now, what makes these UAPs so different?
What makes them so unique?
Yeah.
Well, Elizondo outlines five key observables that set UAPs apart.
Okay.
We don't have time to go through all of them,
Okay.
but I want to highlight two.
Okay, sure.
The first one is hypersonic velocity, meaning speeds far beyond what any known aircraft can achieve.
We're talking, like, really fast.
Ridiculously fast. Okay. Thousands of miles per hour, making instantaneous 90-degree turns, maneuvers that would rip apart a conventional aircraft.
Sounds like something out of science fiction.
Right. It's wild.
Yeah.
And the second one is, and this one really gets me, transmedium travel.
Transmedium travel, what's that?
These UAPs have been observed seamlessly transitioning between different environments, like air, water, even space.
Wait, so they can go from, like, the ocean to the sky just like that?
Seamlessly without any limitations.
Wow.
I mean, think about it. We have vehicles that can operate in multiple domains.
Sure, like seaplanes.
Right, but those involve design compromise.
Yeah, they're not exactly graceful in either.
Not really.
Yeah.
These UAPs, on the other hand, seem to defy those limitations.
So we're not just talking about advanced aircraft here.
No.
We're talking about something that fundamentally challenges our understanding of physics, of technology.
Sure, totally.
I mean, how is that even possible?
I don't know, but it makes you wonder. If the government has been investigating these UAPs for years, why all the secrecy?
That's a good question.
Why not just come clean about what they know?
Right, what are they hiding?
Well, Elizondo sheds some light on this.
He does.
Yeah, he points to several factors,
Okay.
including the stigma associated with UFOs.
Right, people think you're crazy if you talk about it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The fear of public panic.
Nobody wants mass hysteria.
No.
Okay, so I get that.
And the potential for adversaries to exploit this information.
So national security concerns.
Exactly.
Okay.
He also cites historical examples like the government's initial denial of the U-2 spy plane.
Oh, right. They didn't want to admit they were spying.
Exactly, to illustrate how governments have a history of concealing information.
Makes sense. They want to protect their secrets,
Right.
even if it's in the public interest.
Sometimes, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, so governments aren't always known for their transparency, are they?
Especially when it comes to sensitive information.
No, they're not.
But it sounds like Elizondo isn't just letting them off the hook.
No, he's not.
He has some criticisms of his own.
He does, yeah. He expresses serious concerns about the lack of transparency, particularly with Congress and even presidents regarding UAPs.
Well, so he's saying they're not even telling the people in charge.
Yeah, and worrying him.
Yeah, I can see why.
Yeah. So we ended part 1 talking about government secrecy.
Oh, yeah, all the things they might be hiding from us.
Yeah, and the lengths to which some might go to keep this information about UAPs under wraps.
Right, why would they do that?
I mean, is it just embarrassment? You know?
Like they don't have the answers.
Yeah, or is there something more going on?
Yeah, it's hard to say for sure.
Right.
But Elizondo hints at a few possibilities.
Okay, like what?
Well, one is just the fear of the unknown.
Okay.
These UAPs represent a fundamental challenge to our understanding of the world.
Sure.
And for some people, that's deeply unsettling.
I can see that.
Yeah, it forces us to confront the possibility that we're not as advanced as we thought we were, and that there might be things out there that are far beyond our control.
I mean, I can see how that could lead to a certain amount of denial or even panic.
Oh, absolutely.
It's like that scene in the movie Contact.
Yeah.
You know, where the scientist played by Jodie Foster finally makes contact with an alien intelligence.
Right.
And her first reaction is to just stammer, "They should have sent a poet."
Exactly. Sometimes reality can be so overwhelming, so mind-boggling, that it's hard to even process it.
Right.
But Elizondo argues that we can't afford to bury our heads in the sand.
We can't just ignore it.
No, these UAPs are real, they're here, and we need to understand what they are and what they want.
And the fact that they're showing up around nuclear facilities, that's concerning.
Yeah, that is a bit unnerving.
I mean, is that a sign of aggression, or are they just curious about our technology?
Again, we don't know, and that's what makes it so unnerving.
Yeah.
Elizondo suggests that we need to be careful not to anthropomorphize these UAPs.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
Well, we tend to project our own values and motivations onto the unknown.
Right, we assume they think like us.
Exactly. But these objects might operate on entirely different principles.
Okay.
They might not even perceive us as a threat or a curiosity.
So they could be totally indifferent to us.
We could be like ants to them, completely beneath their notice.
Except that they keep showing up where we are,
That's true.
where our sensitive technology is, where our nuclear weapons are.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
Doesn't seem very beneath their notice to me.
And it's one that Elizondo doesn't shy away from.
Right.
He acknowledges the potential dangers posed by these UAPs.
But he's not saying we should panic.
No, he cautions against giving in to fear.
Okay.
He uses the analogy of finding unexplained footprints in your home.
Okay.
It's not inherently a threat,
Right.
but it demands investigation.
I like that. It strikes a balance between caution and curiosity.
Exactly.
But going back to the secrecy issue, Elizondo is very critical of the lack of transparency, especially the way information is often withheld from Congress and even presidents.
He's saying they're not even telling the people in charge.
He is, and he's not happy about it.
Wow, that's pretty serious.
Yeah, he suggests that there might be a deliberate effort to control the narrative.
To keep the public in the dark.
Yeah, and to prevent us from knowing the full truth.
And who's behind that?
Well, he even mentions a colleague, David Grush.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of him.
Yeah, who faced serious retaliation after blowing the whistle on UAP secrecy.
So there are consequences for speaking out.
It seems that way.
Wow, that's chilling.
It is. It's a chilling reminder of what can happen when you speak truth to power, especially when it comes to something as sensitive as this.
Right, you could lose your career, your reputation, everything.
Exactly. And it raises questions about who's really in control.
Yeah, who's calling the shots here?
Is it elected officials, or are there other forces at work?
Like within the intelligence community.
Or the military?
Operating outside the normal channels of accountability.
Yeah, that's a question that needs to be answered.
It certainly does.
And Elizondo is a strong advocate for greater transparency and congressional oversight.
Makes sense. He wants to bring this out into the open.
He does. He believes that the public has a right to know what's going on.
And that more openness would lead to better research and understanding.
Exactly. It's like that old saying, sunlight is the best disinfectant.
I like that.
You know, secrecy breeds suspicion and conspiracy theories.
Yeah, people start filling in the blanks themselves.
Right, whereas openness allows for informed discussion and debate.
So we can actually figure out what's going on.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about the secrecy.
Right.
But let's get back to the UAPs themselves.
Yeah, what are they?
Where do they come from?
That's the million-dollar question.
It is.
And Elizondo doesn't pretend to have have a definitive answer.
Okay.
He explores various possibilities,
Like what?
ranging from advanced foreign technology to extraterrestrial life. Yeah, and even interdimensional beings.
Wow. So we're talking about things that could be from other dimensions.
He's not ruling anything out.
That's pretty wild.
It is, but he's careful to emphasize that these are just possibilities, not conclusions,
Okay.
and that more research is needed to determine the true nature of these objects.
So we need to keep an open mind.
Exactly.
Interesting.
I know a lot of people dismiss the extraterrestrial hypothesis out of hand.
Yeah, they think it's too far-fetched.
Right. But given what we know about the vastness of the universe...
And the limitations of our own perception?
Right. It doesn't seem that far-fetched to me.
I mean, statistically speaking, it seems almost impossible that we're alone.
Right. We've only been actively searching for extraterrestrial life for a few decades.
Yeah, and we've already found evidence of potentially habitable planets around other stars.
Exactly.
So why couldn't some of those planets be home to civilizations far more advanced than our own?
That's what I'm saying.
It's certainly a possibility, and one that Elizondo takes seriously. He even uses the analogy of studying microscopic life
Okay.
to illustrate how our perception of reality is limited by our tools and our understanding.
So we could be missing a whole world of things that are right in front of us.
Exactly. For centuries, humans were unaware of the teeming world of microorganisms all around us.
Right, because we couldn't see them.
Exactly. Simply because we lack the technology to perceive them.
So what else might we be missing?
Exactly. What else is out there that we haven't even begun to imagine?
It's a great point. It's a reminder to stay humble and to always be open to new possibilities.
Absolutely.
But even if we accept the possibility of extraterrestrial life, it doesn't necessarily mean that these UAPs are alien spacecraft.
Right. They could be something else entirely.
Something we haven't even conceived of yet.
That's true. And that's what makes this topic so fascinating and so challenging.
It really is.
We're dealing with something that's fundamentally outside our current understanding of the world.
It's like trying to solve a puzzle with missing pieces.
Exactly. And it requires us to think outside the box.
To challenge our assumptions.
And to be willing to embrace the unknown.
Speaking of challenging assumptions,
Right.
What about the arguments against the existence of UAPs?
Yeah, there are still a lot of skeptics out there.
Right, who dismiss all of this as misidentification, hoaxes, or hallucinations.
They think it's all just people seeing things.
Exactly. So how does Elizondo address those arguments?
Well, he does so systematically and convincingly.
Okay.
He points out that many of these UAP encounters involve multiple witnesses,
Okay.
often highly trained military personnel.
Right, these aren't just random people off the street.
No, and they're corroborated by radar data, gun camera footage, other forms of sensor confirmation.
So it's not just eyewitness accounts.
No, there's hard data to back it up.
And he also emphasizes that the consistency of the reports, spanning decades and across multiple cultures.
It's a global phenomenon.
Yeah, it suggests that we're dealing with a real phenomenon, not just a collection of isolated incidents.
Right, there's a pattern here.
And he also makes a great point about the technology not existing back in the 1940s and 50s to explain some of these sightings.
Oh yeah, good point.
And the idea that these are all mass hallucinations, I mean, come on.
That's a bit of a stretch.
It would take an awfully sophisticated hoax to fool all those people and all those instruments.
Right, and let's not forget the physical evidence.
Oh yeah, what about that?
Elizondo confirms that the government possesses exotic materials recovered from UAP incidents.
He does.
He does. He can't reveal details because of his security oath.
Right, of course.
But the fact that this material exists and is being studied.
It's pretty compelling.
It is. It's a pretty big piece of the puzzle.
So we've talked about the evidence, the secrecy, the potential dangers, the possible explanation.
Yeah, we've covered a lot of ground.
What does this all mean for us?
Right. What are the implications of this phenomena?
For our understanding of the world, for our future as a species.
That's the question we'll explore in the final part of our deep dive.
We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, from Elizondo's background and his work on AATIP.
Yeah, and the evidence for UAPs, the government secrecy.
Right, and all the potential dangers and explanations for this phenomenon.
It's a lot to take in.
It is, but now I think it's time to tackle the biggest question of all.
Okay, shoot.
What does this all mean for us?
That's the question that keeps me up at night, to be honest.
Yeah.
If we're truly dealing with something beyond our current understanding, something that challenges our most fundamental assumptions about the universe and our place in it.
It's a big if.
It is. But if it's true, then everything changes.
Wow. I mean, I can only imagine.
It's like that moment in human history when we realized that the Earth wasn't the center of the universe.
Right.
It completely shifted our perspective, both literally and figuratively.
Yeah, and this could be even more profound.
Imagine realizing that we're not alone, that there are other intelligences out there, perhaps far more advanced than our own.
That would change everything.
It would force us to reconsider everything we thought we knew about ourselves, our history, our future.
It's both exhilarating and terrifying at the same time, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. The
Yeah.
possibilities are endless, but so are the potential risks.
Elizondo talks about the need for caution, especially when it comes to actively searching for extraterrestrial intelligence.
Yeah, he's worried that we might not be ready for what we find.
We might attract attention that we're not prepared to handle.
Exactly. He uses a thought-provoking analogy,
Oh, yeah.
comparing humanity to a tribe in the Amazon rainforest, suddenly encountering a modern-day expedition.
Okay.
The tribe might be curious, even welcoming,
Right.
but the encounter could also be devastating,
How so?
exposing them to diseases and technologies they're not equipped to handle.
It's a sobering thought.
It is. It makes you realize that we might not be the most advanced civilization out there.
And that contact with a more advanced species could have unintended consequences.
Absolutely.
And it also raises ethical questions. I mean, do we have the right to impose ourselves on other intelligences?
Right. Should we even be trying to contact them in the first place?
These are questions that science fiction has been grappling with for decades.
Yeah, but now they're becoming real-world concerns.
And it's not just about potential threats or ethical dilemmas.
There are also profound philosophical and spiritual implications to consider.
Yeah, like what?
If we're not alone, what does that say about the nature of consciousness, about the meaning of life,
Okay.
about our place in the grand scheme of things?
These are big questions.
They are questions that have puzzled philosophers and theologians for centuries.
And now we're actually having to confront them.
It seems so.
It's a lot to wrap our heads around.
It is, but I think that's part of what makes this topic so compelling.
Yeah, it forces us to think big,
To question everything.
to confront the limits of our knowledge and imagination.
And to remember that we're still at the very beginning of this journey of discovery.
We've only just scratched the surface.
Elizondo's work and the work of others who are pushing for transparency and open-minded investigation is crucial to helping us navigate this uncharted territory.
And what about the impact on society? I mean, how would the world react if definitive proof of extraterrestrial life were to emerge?
It's hard to predict with certainty,
Okay.
but Elizondo believes that the truth, no matter how strange or unsettling, is always preferable to ignorance or denial.
So he's all for full disclosure.
He suggests that the public is more ready for this than some might think.
And that open and honest disclosure would ultimately lead to a more informed and resilient society.
He also makes a powerful point about how this knowledge could unite humanity
Really?
in a way that nothing else has before.
I mean, I can see that.
Faced with a common challenge, a common mystery, our differences might seem less significant.
We might be more inclined to work together.
Exactly, to solve the puzzle.
So where do we go from here? What are the next steps in unraveling this mystery and preparing for what might lie ahead?
Elizondo emphasizes the need for continued research, open-minded investigation, and most importantly, transparency.
Okay.
He urges us to demand accountability from our leaders, to push for greater disclosure, and to support those who are working to bring the truth to light.
He also encourages each of us to stay informed, to ask critical questions, to engage in constructive dialogue, even with those who hold different views.
It's about creating a culture of curiosity and intellectual honesty.
Where we're not afraid to challenge our assumptions and embrace new possibilities.
Exactly.
It's about remembering that we're all in this together on this tiny blue planet hurtling through the vastness of space, and that whatever we might find out there,
The most important thing is how we choose to respond.
how we choose to treat each other, and how we choose to shape our future.
It's a message of hope, a call to action, and a reminder that even in the face of the unknown, we have the power to choose our own destiny.
So as we conclude this deep dive, we leave you with a final thought from Elizondo himself.
Okay.
He says, the truth is out there and it's waiting to be discovered. But it's up to us to seek it, to embrace it, and to use it wisely.
Words to live by.
That's right. And with that, we'll leave you to ponder the possibilities.